So the next perfection, the next part of me is Panna, or wisdom. And of course, I had a connection with this simply because when I became a monk, I had the wonderful opportunity to take temporary ordination with my teacher, and it really was. It was just something incredible, such a gift in my life. And so at the ordination ceremony, I got my name, which you know I think very well, was Panna Deepa. And the joke was that my teacher said, "So I give you this name Panna Deepa, which means island of wisdom. And I give you this name because you come from an island, not because you are wise." And I thought that was lovely. That was, some kind of intimacy between us. He didn't make. There were 3 other people who became ordained at the same time, and he didn't make a joke about their names. So I really felt quite privileged that he would do that. So Deepa means island, and Panna means wisdom. So island of wisdom. And then as I continued with my practice, of course, really devoting myself to this Dharma practice, not Buddhism, although I always enjoyed Buddhism. I thought every aspect of it was something suitable. I liked the little ceremonies. I liked the naming ceremonies for the children. I liked to live at the monastery. It fitted me very well. But the last time I was with my teacher, obviously before he died, he said to me, we were in his room together privately, and he said, "Michael, I never tried to teach you Buddhism, only Dhamma." And of course, I really appreciated that. And I could see actually that this attraction to Buddhism was coming from me. There was something, but even right from the very first moment I sat in the Dharma hall, on that very first evening, and he said those words which kind of changed my life, that if you want to be happy in your life, you have to cultivate a loving heart. So those few words really changed my life. Words can be incredibly powerful. But also during the meditation, I remember, this is a memory that's kind of come back to me quite recently, but there was this beautiful marble Burmese Buddhist statue, Buddha Rupa, on the shrine. There was something about it that was so compelling for me. So when we should be sitting something like this, I was like this, almost gazing in love at this beautiful image of the Buddha. And then I think at the end of the meditation, the man who would later become my teacher, Sayadaw Dhamma, said, "What is it? What is wrong?" And I said, "Well, nothing is wrong. It's just the beauty of this image." And he probably went, "Oh," like this. He was not so impressed. But so I had a natural attraction towards Buddhism. But as my teacher said, I never tried to teach you Buddhism, only Dhamma. And so I got this name, Panna Deepa, meaning island of wisdom, and I never used it. No one, only my teacher, when I was in robes, called me Panna Deepa. It's not a name that I used in the factory where I was working or with my wife or what. Nobody called me Panna Deepa except my teacher. But then I discovered that in the Pali language, Deepa also means light. So another variation of my name is not just island of wisdom, but light of wisdom. And that really began to appeal to me a lot, that I can bring into, it would be my intention as much as I'm able to bring wisdom into every situation, not just views, not just opinions, not just ideas, but to bring that light of wisdom. Wisdom is something that illuminates the darkness of ignorance. Dipankara, he had the same, Dipankara, the bringer of light. And as I said earlier, this is how I really understand Dhamma, that the master, the real master now, brings light to every situation, not by telling you what you want to hear, but telling you what is. That, we have this body, it passes through life, through old age, sickness and death. We meet many difficulties, but it's just the nature of the body. It may not be comfortable, but it's not personal. It's just the nature of the body, that when we take human form at conception, and then we develop, and then we're born. So whatever can happen to a human being can happen to us because we're not in any way special or different from anyone else. We have the same body, and what makes us different, perhaps, is our karma, our own personal karma. But it's not personal. There are things that you're not being punished for something. And so, just that much to recognize that life is not about you, that you just make it about you. That's the beginnings of wisdom. So wisdom is something that brings light to the darkness of ignorance, and ignorance is the state of not knowing. So ignorance and wisdom are the opposing forces. So as long as we live in ignorance, then we're living in a kind of a darkness. We can't see what's in front of us. We can't see what's behind us or to the side of us or above or below, and yet we stumble through that. We follow almost our instinct or our desires to be happy, because happiness is a comfortable feeling. And so we want to be happy, but we don't know where happiness is. You know, it's the old story that, well, we just look in the wrong place. We look in the world. We find the right person, the right partner, the right job, the right car, the right clothes to wear, the right group to follow. And then once we can do all that, then we can be happy forever. But we know that's not true, just by our own life experience. Like this very famous story of the man who was walking home one night and he saw his friend on his hands and knees crawling around under a lamppost. You understand lamppost? And so he said to his friend, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I've dropped my house key and I'm looking for it." So the friend said, "Well, I'll help you." And he got down on his hands and knees, and the two of them are crawling around under this lamppost. And after half an hour, the friend says, "Well, I can't find it. Are you sure you dropped it here?" He said, No, I dropped it in my garden." So, "Well, if you dropped it in your garden, why are we looking here?" He said, "Well, there's more light here." And that's how we get, confused. We're looking for happiness in the wrong place, even though we know that's not where happiness lies. Because we've tried it over and over and over. All the different relationships we've had and the different jobs we've had and the different ideas we've had to follow, in the end, we still find ourselves sitting on a cushion, watching the breath in our nostrils and the sensations in our body. Because everything fails us. Everything fails our expectations. So we have these two opposing forces: ignorance, which keeps us trapped in this spiral of just going round and round and round, and then wisdom, which brings a light to this darkness. So then we can see how to live for ourselves. It's not for us to change the world. That's not our place. But for us to brighten the mind so we can see reality. From that place, maybe then we can begin to bring changes to our family or our small community or whatever. But even that we have to take a lot of care with. If we want to inspire others, we have to do it through our way of living, not just through what we can say. So there is another almost enemy to wisdom. Perhaps enemy is too strong a word, but it's intelligence. Intelligence and wisdom are not the same thing. Intelligent people are not necessarily wise, and wise people are not necessarily intelligent. Our whole education system is, pretty much filling an empty head to capacity with as many things. So we know more and more things about more and more things. But that doesn't mean to say we're wise. That just means we know more and more things about more and more things. So our head is kind of full of ideas. Whereas, and it's said that in the world, every day something new is acquired. And in Dharma, every day something old is let go of. And this is our way to let go, to empty this head that's full of things that don't really serve us. I give this simple example that I don't have any objection to knowing this, but when I was a child, we were told that the sun, I don't know it in kilometers, but only in miles, but the sun is 93 million miles away from the earth. That does not impact in my life at all, not in any way. I only know when the sun's shining or when it's night or when the sun is behind the clouds. Knowing the distance from the earth does not help me at all. So that's intelligence. It's useful, we need it, but we can overemphasize the importance of it. Whereas wisdom is not knowing about something, it is knowing that thing directly. And the whole of our practice is about that. It's being the knowing itself, ultimately to be the knowing. So we're not trying to make, to impress or even, sort of create some kind of reputation, but just that we live in accordance with wisdom, with knowing the reality of things, that whatever arises passes away and is not you, it's not what you are, so relax. This thing you're experiencing right now, it's impermanent. If you just give it the space, then it will fall away by itself. And if you do give it the space, and when it does fall away, then you will have entered the Visuddhi Magga, the path of purification, this way of letting go, letting go, letting go, letting go. Not acquiring more and more information about even Buddhism or Dhamma. There is a difference between knowing about Dhamma and knowing Dhamma itself. So our way is to know Dhamma. There's a difference between knowing about the mind and knowing the mind itself. And our way is to know the mind itself directly, not to write essays about it and not to give discourses about it, but to know by our own direct experience that whatever arises passes away. And it's not us. It is just a cloud passing through a clear blue sky. It is just one of the an impermanent quality of mind. And there's nothing you can do about it. If you like it, you can't make it stay. And if you don't like it, you can't push it away faster. But with wisdom, we just allow everything to take its course. So wisdom is something to really pursue, not by learning more and more things, but by letting go of things and cultivating this recognition that life as we experience it is impersonal. It's not about us. We just make it about us. When it rains on everybody, not just us, although we may be the ones complaining about it. So when we come to the Dhamma, the things that we need to cultivate wisdom about, which generally is ourself and life, of course, but are the Four Noble Truths. Well, in fact, it's the first aspect of the Eightfold Path is called samaditi, right understanding. And that's what we need to cultivate wisdom about, because everything is contained in that, really. We have the understanding of karma, not as we see it on social media, or not as you might read it in some little book or something, the idea that what goes around comes around. You've heard me speak about karma so much and for a long, long time. It's so important to understand whatever you empower in the mind has a consequence. Whatever you empower is called karma. You're creating a karma. And that karma has a consequence, which is it bears fruit. You will meet the consequence of that, and that's called vipaka. Karma, vipaka, this is the reality of your life. You have to understand this. You cannot sidestep it. You cannot avoid it. Whatever you empower has a consequence in your life. Not that it should be threatening. If you empower something beautiful, you meet the consequence of that, something beautiful. If you empower something unkind or unpleasant, you meet the consequence of that. But everything is beginning and ending in the mind. It's not happening in the world, it's only happening in the mind. What happens in the world happens in the world. That, by your interaction with it, then produces another karma. And so it goes on forever, until we cultivate wisdom, until we have Panna, and we see that it's not personal, none of it. It's just a process that occurs, and I keep interacting with that process. I keep spinning the karma wheel. So we have to understand karma in the first aspect of the Eightfold Path, the right understanding. There are three things to understand. The first one is karma itself. It's so important. I know I say this a lot, but really, again, it's about my care, my love for you. You need to understand karma, not as something over there, but something that's happening every moment. The second one is that you need to understand the Four Noble Truths, what's called the Four Noble Truths, that life is like this. It's called, in Buddhist language, it's called the Dukkha Arya Satya, the first Noble Truth, that life is like this. We don't say that life is suffering, because life isn't suffering. There it can be suffering in life. But to say that all of life is suffering is not a good understanding at all. Um, a wise understanding is, well, what did the Buddha mean? Well, I can understand what he means because I can test the teachings. I can go to the same place he was in, where I can see that, oh yeah, life is not suffering. That would not occur to him. This does not exist in Buddhist countries. That life is not suffering, but it is unsatisfactory. And I keep getting this feeling of unsatisfactoriness, and it manifests as frustration and disappointment, and many other things which are uncomfortable to bear. So as a shortcut for all of that, we say life is suffering, but you have to understand what that really means before you can use that expression properly. And I've had people having a heated, almost to the point of argument with me about this. That when I would say, so the Buddha did not say life is suffering, and they would say, yes, he did. I said, no, he didn't. Yes, he really did. And the answer, the question is then, well, how do you know? Because it's written here. It's written in some translation. But you know the story very well. When I was in Dharamsala, I travelled there with a friend, a woman, and she was doing a course at Tushita Tibetan Center, and I was just wandering in the mountains and meditating. It was a very nice time for me. And we would meet for dinner, and then one evening she came in and she was in such a bad mood. She was so angry. And I said, so what happened? And she had told me that an American Tibetan nun had given the course of that afternoon, and this American Tibetan nun had said, birth is suffering, life is suffering, death is suffering, getting what you want is suffering, not getting what you want is suffering, everything is suffering. And it just went on. There seemed to be no respite, that everything was suffering. And this had touched something inside my friend and really upset her. And she was angry. And so she sat in her chair and then bumped it towards the table, not discreet at all. And she told me all this, and I said, but the Buddha never said life is suffering. She said, well, how do you know? I said, because he didn't speak English. And I know that sounds like a joke, but he didn't speak English. Now, all of us here speak more than our own language, and so we know that you can't just translate, or you can't always translate one for another directly. And so we have to take a lot of care about these things. And the wisdom in this, the Panna in this, is to reflect from our own experience. Is life suffering? Well, as I say, there are moments of it. Of course, somebody dies, an animal you're close to dies, or you're separated from people you want to be with. Yeah, maybe you could say this is suffering, or it's just uncomfortable for a moment, or whatever. But it doesn't last. It changes, because nothing lasts. Everything changes. That's the wisdom of understanding anicca. And the second one is, well, why does life disappoint me so much? Why is life uncomfortable? The second noble truth. Because we have expectations. We have a mind that can go anywhere. It can travel all the way around the world. It can create all kinds of stories and scenarios and desires. I want this, I must have that, and that shouldn't be this way. And I was in Pokhara in Nepal, and I was watching, because it's right where the Himalayas are. It's just beautiful. And the sun was setting, and there was this pink light going across the snow on the Himalayas. Very beautiful. And there were a group of Americans, sorry, they're getting a bad time in this story, but the group of Americans comparing sunsets. The sunset in the Alps or the sunset in the Rockies or whatever is nicer than the sunset in the Himalayas. What a waste of a moment. That we can actually watch this beautiful thing unfolding, that nature right in front of us, or we begin to compare which is the best one. So we have the samudaya, the cause of our experience of unsatisfactoriness. The mind desiring and the mind with aversion, pushing things away. And then the becoming part. This feeling that whatever I am now, it's not enough. I need to be more. I need to become something to feel fulfilled. And, again, the story is just a repetition that whatever you become to feel happy is not going to be enough. It's never going to fulfill you because of the nature of the mind and because the nature of that sense of fulfillment itself is impermanent. And so the next one is that it's called the Nirodha, the Nirodha Arya Satya. It is that this can change. You don't have to be a victim to this mind, always grasping at something to make you happy and always being disappointed ultimately by the thing that you thought would bring you everlasting happiness. And you can change that. And this is like, this is the light of wisdom. It doesn't have to stay like this. Whatever situation you're in, it doesn't have to stay like this. You have the power to change it. You're not trapped in a life that you don't like, if you don't like your life. But you're not trapped in that. You can change it. And the only reason you don't change it is because of fear. But that's something you have to reflect upon for yourself. So the Nirodha is really simply the Buddha saying, it doesn't have to be like this. You can change it. And then the question is, well, how? If I want to be free, how can I change it? And he said, so this is of course according to the Theravada tradition, but he said, so it's like this. It's called the path, the Magga. The Magga Arya Satya, the noble truth of the path. And it's these 8 aspects of something to cultivate in your life. And it's always about this. It's not to get, but to cultivate, to plant the seeds of right understanding, of right intention, of right action, all these different things. To plant the seed and then take care with them. Because if we're wise, then we want to take care of ourselves. If we're wise, we want the best for ourselves, not in a selfish or unloving way, but we want the best for ourselves because by bringing the best to ourselves, which is Dhamma, then we bring the best to the world that we're part of. Because then we're no longer one more person just screaming and shouting, saying, it shouldn't be like this. But it is like this. This is exactly how it is. Exactly like this. Now with wisdom, we can ask the question, well, what's my place in this? Oh, I know I can help this person, or I can leave this situation because it's not useful for me to be here, it doesn't help. But we will know how to behave. We will know when to speak and when to be quiet. We will know what to bring and what to leave behind. And this is wisdom. So that was the first part of the Samadhi, the karma, and then the Four Noble Truths themselves, and then the last one is the anicca, anatta, dukkha. That everything is in a state of change, everything, including you, at every aspect of you, at the subatomic level, at the mind level, the thoughts arising and passing away, emotions and moods and feelings and all those different things. And in that endless process of change, there is nothing that you can say, that's me, there I am, look, right there. Because everything you can point to is already changing. So the idea of believing that there is a permanent fixed self that we give a name to is something we have to understand as being false. It's useful in the world when you want to claim your seat on the aeroplane or the train or something like that, or you want a seat in a restaurant. Yes, that conventional reality is useful, but the wisdom is knowing it's a conventional reality. It's not an absolute reality. So everything is in a process of change, and because everything is in a process of change, there is nothing that you can put your finger on and say, that's me. Descartes apparently said, I think, therefore I am. That's a really well-known statement. I think, therefore I am. But my teacher said, he said, I think, therefore I think I am. And that's wiser. And then, so we have these anicca, anatta, the emptiness of a permanent or fixed self, and then dukkha, this unsatisfactoriness. So these 3 things go round and round and round. Without wisdom, we're searching for this this perfect land, this perfect relationship, this perfect time in our life where everything is not going to change. Once we find it, we're going to be settled in this beautiful environment of whatever, of happiness. So we have this, the wisdom of Panna, and it seems to me that Gautama's last life, over hundreds of thousands of lives, perfecting these things little by little in each life. In one life, his dana would be perfected a little bit more. Another life, his morality would be perfected a little bit more. Another life, his renunciation would be perfected a little bit more. But in his last life, as in Gautama, who became the Buddha, he would perfect the wisdom, and that would be the last part. This is only my idea. I haven't heard this from Buddhist scholars. But it seems to me that that was the last thing, sitting under the Bodhi tree, watching his previous life, seeing the impermanence of all phenomena, and then just that wise understanding that releases everything. And all his old story and his old conditioning, his old karma just fell away. And all that's left is this smile, the smile of awakening. So Panna is something important. It's not intelligence. It's not that you have to read the suttas and then study them and investigate them. Although I did do that, my teacher told me to, and I did it because of my respect for him. I didn't like it that much, but I think it's useful because now I have memories of these things and I can recall them pretty much when I want to. Sometimes I get them wrong, but more or less. So from my position here, that was quite a good thing to do. But I'm not an intellectual person. You know me, so you must know I'm not. I'm not an intellectual person. I used to get into a lot of trouble in India saying this because I didn't say it like that, proving that I'm not an intellectual person. I used to say, you see, I'm not a very intelligent person. And then this woman corrected me. She said, you mean intellectual. You don't mean intelligent. I said, oh yeah, I think I do mean that. So proving that I'm neither intelligent or intellectual. But yes, that's it. So my experience in Dharma is not about reading about it. It is about doing the practice of living with love and cultivating awareness and of and doing the practice as it was presented to me, not blindly, but to test it, to see. Is it really true? If I let go a little, is there really a little peace? If I let go a lot, is there really a lot of peace? And if I let go completely, is there really complete peace? Now the answer is yes. But you don't know that. You only know that's what I say. And if we go back, I only know because what my teacher said, and he only knows because what the Buddha said, until we test it for ourselves. And then we have the awakening into the real Dharma life, which is a life of wisdom, not a blind faith. In fact, there's no faith. It's another mistranslation. That in Buddhist teaching we have the word saddha. And saddha is translated as faith. But I think what we have to understand is that how we have come to receive Buddhism in the West was greatly influenced by Christian missionaries in Buddhist countries, 100, 200 years ago, seeing men with shaved heads and women with shaved heads, think, oh, these are monks and nuns. The Buddhist first teaching, oh yes, life is suffering, because suffering is very much a Christian idea. And so on. And then for this they have saddha also. Saddha must mean faith. They have faith in the Buddha. That's not it at all. This is what I said right at the beginning, that the Dharma that we experience is so subtle and so nuanced, and it's our responsibility to dive beneath the surface. We see life as waves on the ocean, rather than understanding what's causing those waves. And because we see life as waves on the ocean, we're often feeling seasick because we're not understanding what's really happening. So saddha means not faith, but confidence to continue based on your past experience. That's how Dhamma works. So the illustration they give is, if you are sick, if you're ill and you go to the doctor, and the doctor treats you and gives you the right medicine, and you recover your health again, the next time you're sick, you have the confidence to go back to the same doctor. So that's sadha. That's what it means. So we always have to go past what is presented, and just with through language and through words, we have to find our own investigation, or we have to make our own investigation into what's being presented and how realistic it is. This is not, as I just said, a system of blind faith or belief. And here with us, it's not even a system of Buddhism. I have a great affection for Buddhism, really a great affection. It was a great gift and a great vehicle in my life. But becoming a Buddhist is not part of the journey. But understanding what the Buddha taught, that is the journey. And so understanding what he taught, and by direct experience and by testing it, then we can cultivate the wisdom. And the wisdom is to recognize that things are not really broken. Things don't really need to be fixed. We have this idea that we have to fix everything. We have to fix our relationships or fix our work or fix something else. But things mostly don't need to be fixed. They need to be understood. Because once you understand them, you see, well, this is their nature. They're not broken. This is how they evolve. And so this is the cultivation of wisdom, that we can live peacefully and harmoniously and lovingly and wisely in the world, serving ourselves from a non-selfish perspective, but then serving all beings around us. This is the wisdom called, or the perfection of wisdom called Panna. So I offer this for your consideration and your reflection, and may you be well and happy.